Hello everyone, this is Garrity Tannencourt from the new morethanasnapshot.com. If you haven't checked it out yet, come and check out my new website. We have, of course, some featured blog posts, articles that will help you with your photography, and of course my classes are for sale. So if you haven't checked that out yet, please do, and be sure to like, comment, and share on the articles and practice, and hopefully it'll help you get better with your photography. All right, so it's time to start this week's critique session. And here we're starting off with what looks like an eagle photo. And of course, anytime you can photograph eagles, it's great fun. And this image does look nice and sharp. I would say, though, that it is a little bit underexposed. And if we were to pump up the exposure a little bit, we can see a bit more detail in the eagle that we couldn't see before. So I think, like I said, anytime you can capture eagles or anything like that, it's great. And you did capture it sharp, but the lighting is really not helping you in this situation. So nice capture, but you just weren't very lucky with the lighting situation you were in. And I'm guessing this is a shot that's showing more of the environment, and so yeah, I'm guessing that's the eagle up in the tree over there, and that's nice. It's just that the eagle is so small in the picture; it's kind of hard to tell that it is an eagle. So sometimes you get great pictures for yourself that you really like, and that's all it needs to be. Now this one, you're getting warmer to getting a really more artful image, let's say, one that might do well in a competition or something like that. Because the background is very simple, it's not distracting, and we have just the simple bird. Again, I think I would have flipped this image and put the bird on this side. I also think you don't need this post over here, and it shows a strong highlight. So I would crop that out. And the problem is you have a very strong highlight. It's kind of harsh lighting, so it was probably during midday. This is a nice capture. It's a nice bird. It's nice and sharp. The exposure on this one does look pretty good, except that you have tough lighting conditions. You can see even on the top of the wood, it's a bit overexposed. And I'd say that's the main trouble spot with this image, is that harsh lighting. But hey, sometimes that happens. You're out photographing birds in nature at different times of the day. The other thing is, if you had so much light, why did you use such a high ISO? I don't really know what ISO you used, but if you look closely in the background of this image, you can see there is a lot of noise in the background. So that suggests that you might have been using a very high ISO. If you have Lightroom, you can try using your brush tool and try using the noise reduction function. I don't know, I'll pump it up a little bit there, and then try painting in just the background part of the image to see if that helps remove some of the noise. Maybe I'll have to pump it up even more. Yes, that's definitely helping. And it doesn't matter if it over smooths the background, because there's no detail there anyway. So if you do this, it will really help with the noise level of your background. Yeah, much cleaner. So I would try that. All right, here we have another picture of the bird, and it's got beautiful blue colors in it. I like this one as well. I think also for cropping purposes, we probably see more of this wood than we might need to, so I would consider cropping up a bit. You can still keep him in the third of the frame. Something like that, maybe. Maybe I went a little bit too far this way. And again, work on removing the noise from the background. And this one, we see nice detail in the feathers. We do still have that harsh highlight. Maybe you could take that down a little with the brush tool. Let's see. Well, it takes it down a little. I'm not sure if it really helps, but the one thing that's helping you here is that harsh light is really giving us nice feather detail. I like that part. Nice action shot here. The birds look like they're fighting or racing to get into the bird box. The birds are not quite tack sharp. There's some motion blur. But the rest of the image is sharp as far as the bird box and stuff like that goes. You got a nice blurred background, although all this wood kind of is distracting from the birds. But it's good that you captured that action. This is a nice, sharp, clear image. I shoot birds a lot too, but I'm not really a birder, and the name of this bird is escaping me at the moment. But I have photographed this bird too, and I would say the problem here is, and it's kind of unavoidable if you're that close to it, is that you're shooting down on it. You would really have to be like laying on the ground to try to get an eye level view of it. Here we have a nice flag shot. And we get to see, I think, because we only see a little bit of motion blur in the flag, you can see this part of the flag is nice and sharp, and then it blurs out as you go, because obviously this part's moving faster. So I think you either needed a slower shutter speed to really enhance the blurring of the motion of the flag, or a faster shutter speed to totally freeze it. But just to have this small amount of blur kind of makes it look like a mistake. So I think you either go all the way, all in, or not. So faster shutter speed or slower. Here we have a shot of a bee on a flower, and the distracting thing is that you have bright flowers and sunlight behind the bee, and there's no light on the bee itself. So again, as I've shown in some other images, if you could have gotten closer and just isolated the bee, it eliminates some of that background distraction, and you could have made the exposure on the bee brighter and just let the background go overexposed. Nice shot of the flowers. Again, if you have some diffusion material, you can buy what they call a 5-in-1 reflector, and one of the options is diffusion material. You can hold it up on this side to soften the light that's coming in and hitting the flowers, because what you end up with here is a very hard, very overexposed looking white side of the petal, and then some flowers that are in deep shade. You got to remember that you want to try to avoid big differences in dynamic range. Your camera just can't get the right exposure in the very bright highlights and in the deep shadows all in the same picture. Here we have some interesting images, and this one is a selective color, and I noticed in the comments you wondered why I didn't like selective color, and I don't. I mean, I like them just fine, and you do them very well. It's just that selective color is something that every photographer will try. And it's known as something of a photo cliche, and that's why I suggest maybe not doing them. But if you like them, you go for it. Like I said, you do them very well, so keep going with it. And I really like this image. The color of the eye here really pops, and I like the contemplative type of look you're giving. And I know you have other versions of it here. I do like this version a lot. And here's the full color version. And I think maybe it could use a little contrast, a little bit of brightening up. And I think I like this version better. Oops, and I know there's another version out there, so I'm going to see if I can find it, and then we'll come back to these other shots. And here is the totally black and white version. I like that one too, but I think that the eye in the background kind of gets, it's too dark. So I prefer the color version. This one. But it's a great idea. It's well done. Good job. Alright, here we have a nice monarch butterfly on a flower. And the exposure is fine. The problem is in the sharpness. You can see here we got very good sharpness on the back of the butterfly. This may have even been where you focused. But the head, the eyes, they're not in focus. And that's the problem. If you had gotten the head and the eyes in focus and some of the back of the butterfly went out of focus, you might have been able to get away with that. But having it the other way around just doesn't work. Also, it almost seems like the butterfly is facing away for us. We're sort of looking at the back of it. So this one didn't quite make it for me. Other people might still like it. This is looks like a good image of white flower. I don't know what kind it is, but again, we have some bright highlights and some deep shadows. It's another image that could have used either diffusion or being lit. And we have some strange blue. Look around the edges of the flower. We got green here and blue here, yellow here. It's like a weird color outline around the flower. That's most likely chromatic aberration, the way the light bounces around inside of your lens. But I've never seen it so bright and so severe. Let's see if this tool will do anything for us. Well, it took away maybe a small amount of it. Let's see if we pump up the strength of this tool. It doesn't really seem to be helping. Maybe it's not really chromatic aberration. Maybe there's something else going on here that I'm not seeing. But it's just strange to see those colors. Here we have a nice sharp shot, good feather detail, but same problem as some of the other bird photos we've seen today. The harsh light, and the bird is facing away from us. You can almost get away with it because we can see its eye, and there's a highlight in its eye. It's almost like the bird is looking back at us. And like I said, it's a fine image, far as whatever you want to use it for. But if you were thinking about it as, could I use this as like a competition type of image, it's got some problems. Pig. And here we have the snout being really in focus, and then the eyes are out of focus. So you needed some more depth of field. I can't tell what f-stop you used to take this picture, but you needed more depth of field, whatever it was. So if I had to guess, I would say probably f8 would have done the job. maybe F11. But you needed to get at least the eyes in focus. This one's a little bit better as far as the depth of field, but still, you can see the focus goes further down the nose, but still falls off by the eye, and I think that's a problem. This one is a bit better. It's a cute composition. This time we're sort of looking down on it. It's looking up at us, and the eyes are sharp, and now the snout is out of focus. Just be careful in your framing. You chopped off part of the ear, and you left a lot of extra foreground. So if I were to crop this, I would take out some of that foreground, but it would have been nicer to have more width to have the ears included. Maybe if we chop off more to make it look like it was done on purpose, maybe that will help. Yeah, that's a bit better. Here we have some flowers, and because composition wise we see a lot of stuff in the background, and there's not one particular flower that really stands out as being the subject, so I think that this image sort of feels like it's lacking a subject, even though we know it's about the flowers. It's not quite delivering that story. It also seems to be out of, I don't know about out of focus, but blurred. Maybe some motion occurred because it's not quite sharp. This one does have more focus. I like the overall composition better. We are focused on a flower, and we have some nice bokeh in the background. I like all of that. Probably I would get rid of this bottom flower. Maybe something like that. And then the only other problem is this little green stem that cuts in front of this flower. Without this green stem, this picture I think would be much better. This image is really cool. I really like it. I'm going to call it the image of the week. And it's because we have a very interesting subject and a very cool sky, very interesting lighting. I think maybe we have a bit too much dark rocks here at the bottom, so I might consider cropping that. Something like that. But I do like that one. I really like this one too. It's a really great sky, and you did a good job using the rocks to block the overexposed sun, and that really allowed you to capture the great color in the sky. And as far as cropping it, I think it's fine the way it is. But if I had to possibly make a little adjustment, maybe a little bit like that. But I think it was fine the way it was too. But this one is a little bit off center. Either way, it's a nice image, great sky. Some hockey pictures, and what I'm really impressed with these is that the white balance looks great, and the exposure looks pretty good. And the reason I mention that is because whenever you shoot in these ice rinks, they usually have terrible lighting, and so sometimes getting a good white balance or a good exposure can be difficult just because the lighting is so bad. Now this might be, you know, professional, semi-professional level hockey, so the lighting in the rink is probably better than you would have at some other rink, but you did a good job with it. And here you captured an image that shows, you know, sort of the pre-struggle of the game. And then here you have another one. This one is capturing the action. That's when you're shooting a sports image, that's what you really want to get. the height of the action, and all the players look really intense that something's about to happen and they're ready. So I think it's a really great image. Good job. And then we have another new member portrait, a self-portrait, and welcome to the class. Good job. And that is the last image for the week, so I hope that the critiques were helpful and that you try again for next week. And thanks. This has been Gary D. Tonicourt, and we'll see you next time.